Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Really looking forward to our panel discussion on the future of cybersecurity partnerships. I have an amazing panel of speakers. I'm really excited for our conversation because we have a variety of folks coming from partner marketing to partnerships in general to the analyst side. So really looking forward to our conversation. We're going to be covering a bunch of different topics ranging from kind of looking at, what are some key ingredients to strategic partnerships, looking at market trends, and we'll see where we end up. I love an organic conversation. And so this is an opportunity for us to all learn and grow. And so let's jump right in. Before we jump into our topics today, I'd love to do some introductions. So for the panelists, Elorie, do you mind introducing yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Taylor, for having me here today. I'm Elorie Widmer. I am the Director of Global Partner Marketing at Zscaler. I've been here about 4 years. And previously, I was at Cisco Systems and spent a long stint in distribution as well. So I've been in the channel my entire career and have lots of love for all different routes to market.
Thanks, Elorie. Appreciate that. Max, mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me, Taylor. Very, very nice to meet everyone. So I'm the Senior Director of Partnerships for North America for Sectigo. I've been in the partnerships business for a very long time. I've done everything from in the cybersecurity space, from desktop to cloud to mobile to SASE to SaaS to where I'm at today, which is Sectigo, and we do managed PKI. So we're a very niche part of cybersecurity, and really looking forward to sharing some of my learnings today and learning from the panel that's here today.
Thanks, Max. Maryam.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maryam Lahiji, Senior Director of Partner and Regional Marketing here at Orca. I've also been here over 4 years, Elorie, and we are a partner of yours as well. So it's exciting to be on this panel. So I manage all types of partner go-to-market efforts here. I actually set up the whole AWS partnership and the Google partnership from the get-go back in the day. And now we have a whole big partner team, which is very exciting to see. And my whole career, I've been in all types of channel roles, strategic alliances, technology alliance partner manager, and I started in distribution as well. So that's a soft spot for me. So lots of different angles of, how to manage the partnerships, what the go-to-market effort should be with the different types of partnerships. And at Orca, I'm on the marketing side. So it's been fun to be on the other side with the knowledge of the strategic partnerships that I've had my whole career. So exciting to be here.
Thanks, Maryam. Jay.
All right, Jay McBain. I'm Chief Analyst at Canalis. Canalis is Latin for channel. So all we do is look at for example, the $282 billion that will be spent in cyber this year from customers and governments, from the smallest flower shop to the largest Fortune 500. We look at the $2 in services that partners sell for every dollar in product that gets sold in software and hardware, and the fact that those services are growing faster than the products at this point. So we look at the 6,500 vendors. We look at the pretty close to 500,000 partners now that are leading with cybersecurity, and hopefully can bring some market research and intelligence to the conversation.
Thanks, Jay. Super cool. Last but not least, I should introduce myself. I'm Taylor Wells. I'm the CEO of the Cyber GTM Alliance. I started my career actually at an MSP, working as an account executive, worked my way up to a head of marketing and sales, then transitioned into the technology space, mostly working in marketing leadership roles at early stage cybersecurity technology companies. And then most recently went full-time on building this alliance, and really excited to be with you all today. So let's jump right into some questions. So my first question is interesting because it might seem obvious, especially with Jay's context setting of how big this market is, and even looking at from the service side or from the technology side. But I'd love to hear, why do you all think strategic partners are important? And I know a lot of CEOs are in this community and listening, and they're thinking about where to invest from a go-to-market standpoint. What's your pitch for strategic partners, and how do you encapsulate the value of investing in strategic partners. Max, I'll throw that at you first.
Sure. Yeah, I can take a stab at that first. So, I mean, the importance of partnerships is they give you scale and reach that you might not get from a direct audience. You know, they can help accelerate your go-to-market in terms of you have through a partner, when you, instead of selling to but selling through, you leverage economies of scale. You get more people bringing your products to market. It also can give you open access to new markets that you might not otherwise have. So like if you're trying to get to a market, a partner is better suited as a trusted advisor to get to that audience. So scale, market reach, market access. And a big thing, I did some consulting for a while with a company called Partner Ready in the States that's actually coaches companies on a partner discipline and building that out. And one of the big things that we constantly espoused to our clients was the customer acquisition costs through a partner channel are far more cost effective over the long run for a CEO than doing a direct model. It can take time to scale a partner channel, but that the return on investment is significantly outweighs a direct channel over the course of time for a lot of those reasons. So those would be sort of the key elements that I would highlight.
Very cool. Maryam, any thoughts?
Yeah, that's spot on. You just, especially in the cyberspace, I think what was your stat? 91%, I'm sure, of companies buy through a partner. Jay, I'm sure you have more specific details to share there, but you just cannot win the cyber game on your own. You have to lean into partners eventually. So it depends on if you want to start on your own and then lean in. And I've been at different companies over the years, not in cyber, but that add-in channel strategy after the fact, and it becomes a little clunky. But I think in cyber, you kind of have to lean in there at some level in the beginning and just give it time to scale. But having a really good view on what type of partners to go to market with and when to pivot off of them is important, because there's also a lot of time you can spend wasting with partners that are not going to drive anything. So it's a very interesting space where you have to really know and pivot and move off of partners fast if they're not actually the ones to focus on, especially on the partner marketing side. There's limited resources to spend, so you have to be wise on where to spend the dollars and when to know to pull out of that investment. But definitely strategic partnerships are ways to go, and then knowing what to expect from each type of partner is also important. Like a hyperscaler is not going to give you, as much leads as a reseller would, as an MSP would, or a tech alliance partner. So just making sure you're aligned at the executive level on what these strategic partners mean for the company and what KPIs you're driving with them are also very important in this.
Very fascinating. A lot of interesting points, Maryam, that I'm sure we'll circle back to as far as good fit and where to invest and how to think about what your growth stage, et cetera. Jay, any thoughts on your pitch for strategic partners?
Yeah, I think there's nuance to the first two answers. Is that the category that you're in is really develops your partnerships and what kind of partnerships there's going to be. I spent 17 years in my early career selling laptops. And 70 to 80% of that market was through partners. So that's obviously in your TAM, that's how you go to market. But if you grew up in your career around SaaS, for example, you were selling Salesforce, ServiceNow, Workday, 250,000 SaaS companies. Many of those companies, reached IPO and obviously hundreds of billions of valuation without selling through partners. So a lot of people question, cybersecurity, and they knew the early days of antivirus and firewalls, and that probably tracked towards kind of the client server days. But in the kind of the modern, and many of the people on the panel here, obviously modern cloud, wouldn't kind of look more like the SaaS market, and it doesn't. In cybersecurity, it is 91.6% this year, sold to, through, and with partners. And even bigger than that, when you step away from just the point of sale and how things are delivered, when you step into the consulting, the design, architecture, whether at the high end, it's zero trust or SASE, In SMB, it might be NIST, whatever model the customer's going towards, the implementations, the integrations, the managed services. It's actually 96% of all customers are surrounded by upwards of 7 trusted partners. And so in cyber, it's almost impossible to reach any level of scale. You might start your business direct and get product fit. You may have to build a sales and marketing engine that's repeatable. But if you don't make an early pivot towards partnering, you're going to kind of be stuck at the 5 people in a garage level in this industry.
Thanks, Jay. Elorie, any thoughts on how you'd pitch strategic partnerships to a CEO and or what's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think when it boils down to is customer experience as well, and partnerships have a huge part in that. As Jay mentioned, services are critical now more than ever. And some companies, some customers, they can't scale when it comes to managing a solution or deploying a solution. Partners are pivotal in making sure that the customer experience is incredible, that there's low churn rate, that there's a chance for renewals as well. The partner is having those conversations with the customer day in, day out about how your product is performing. If as an organization you care about customer success, then you need to have a partner model that supports it and a services program that supports your customers as well. And I mean, 99% of the time that is provided through partners, through the channel ecosystem.
Yeah, and we just came off of, I don't know if everybody was at RSA last week, but 100% agree with everybody. And it's like impossible to know as a customer, like all of the different companies and kind of have to figure out what to buy and sort that out. So having a trusted partner is really the way to go that most companies buy. So the partner angle of it is really important because it's just impossible to keep up with all of the partners that are in the space and continue to be born into this space as we speak. I'm sure there's multiple startups coming afloat. So it's good to have a trusted partner to lean on.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is, partners being plural. The average customer today, with all the complexity, there's 6,500 vendors, by the way, all trying to show at RSA and Black Hat and things. So as they're trying to build their 7-layer stacks, they're looking at their own buying type, their industry, the geography they're in, the compliance that they're under, regulatory. They're looking at the segment they're in and all the different parts of the product stack. So it's now, according to McKinsey, up to 7 trusted partners. So they very much view this as a team sport. All of us view this industry as a team sport as well. There is no trusted advisor. There is no single throat to choke anymore.
Yeah, I think as you've also seen the evolution over time in the cybersecurity space, there's different types of partners. Obviously, there's technology partnerships, there's go-to-market partnerships, that can facilitate that decision making for the CEO or how you're going to scale your business. But you can leverage economies of scale when you interact with different ones. Like APIs are now the standard, right? You want to plug into something larger, like an XDR or a SIEM or anything like that. So there's multiple things as how does my technology play with others in the same space that makes that buying decision easier for the end customer, whoever that end customer is.
I love that. I heard a lot about customer experience. I heard a lot about, creating an ecosystem that has a better outcome for the customers. And I've always thought of strategic partners as the best strategic partners are like a 1 + 1 = 3, right? Where you're creating a better outcome, where you come together, whether it's a product integration or whatever the solution may be, that you're coming together and you're creating a better outcome. And even in the early stage companies I've worked in, that, and I've heard, maybe it was Maryam that mentioned, there was pitfalls, right, to strategic partnerships, which we'll get into, of how to avoid pitfalls and what are red flags and stuff like that. But even if it's not a robust strategic partner, because I've seen it fail many times, I've seen strategic partners fail, especially in early stage startups, right? Because of that long-term investment. And I think a lot of people, we talk about sales cycles a lot, right? We may talk about marketing cycles sometimes, but we definitely don't talk about partnership cycles, which is even one step further, right? It takes a long time to invest in these, and it's you have to build that relationship. And so, but even if you don't invest in like a robust channel partnership or whatever it is, depending on your growth stage, at least tapping into relationships, like no matter what it is, like even the early stage companies of like a strategic partnership may not be a channel partnership, but it could be a really tight knit relationship with an association, right? Or some other organization that you're, once again, you're creating a 1 + 1 = 3. You're creating some sort of value in that community with those trusted advisors. So I think the principles are applicable no matter, what stage you are, the idea of strategic partnerships. And obviously, we all want to tap into ecosystems, and we all want to have maybe the most, the integrations and the most sophisticated or a robust MSP channel program. But even if you can't aspire to that, right, there is so many different ways you can think about strategic partnerships. And the relationships, I think no matter what, there is an element of AI, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, as far as I'd love to hear your all takes on AI and how that will change not only cybersecurity, but partnerships, the buyer's journey and whatnot. But I'd love to hear a little bit about maybe the other side. So we talked about, like, obviously why it's important, but maybe some pitfalls. I know a couple of you mentioned some pitfalls. Maybe any thoughts on where you've seen, investing in strategic partnerships not work? And I just love to hear where you're all seeing, what pitfalls you should avoid. I'll start with you, Jay.
Yeah, so I think the cyber industry, it's pretty safe to say in 2025 is firmly in the platform economy. The platform economy isn't, new to the tech industry. This is what the hyperscalers, the big SaaS platforms have been in for years. But it's in banking, it's in insurance, it's pharmaceutical, automotive. This is an economy that Wall Street, kind of recognizes. Every time I go to Vegas to speak at a cyber event, somebody rents out the Sphere in behind the Venetian and puts the word platform on the side for, $1 million a minute. When I ask their senior executives on stage, what does it mean to you? And part of this is just a misunderstanding of what a platform economy is. The answer is it's synonymous with partnerships. But the answers you get are strange. One is, hey, it's just a fancy UI or UX above a bunch of disparate tools. I can slap a really nice front end on your 7-layer stack. Other people come to market and say, hey, I can bring all these disparate tools under one bundled price. Hey, for this much a month, we can solve all of your problem, from soup to nuts. And it has nothing really to do with bundling or UI. It has to do with partnerships. So you got a new buyer in cyber this year. The majority buyer of that $282 billion is born after 1982. The number one criteria of a millennial is integrations. 79% of them won't buy a car unless it has Apple CarPlay. When they're buying a cybersecurity stack, they're going to buy best of breed. And that's why services are growing faster than products, is they want the integration, the implementation, and all that brought together for things like AI and other things to work. So building the tech integrations among thousands, like Zscaler early on partnered on with Okta and CrowdStrike. That partnership drove all of them to ridiculous triple-digit growth. Understanding they were best of breed in their very specific areas, and customers looking to build those three things together had a whole group of, which ended up becoming millions of people who could build 1 + 1 = 3 and then 5 and then 7 out of that. So integration first, it's the services partnerships, the 6 out of 7 partners that surround your customer that are doing the consulting, design, architecture, they're doing the implementations, the managed services. It's the channel partnerships for the 91% that go through that way. It's the alliance work. You have to be friendly with the hyperscalers. You have to be friendly with the big SaaS platforms. You have to be friendly with the other cyber platforms, whether you compete or not. And then all the go-to-market partnerships that Max mentioned. This is the partnership circle, the co-selling, the co-marketing, the co-innovation, co-development, co-keeping, on top of reselling. That is what platform is, synonymous with partnering. Some companies get this and some companies don't. So you talk about the negative side of this. Companies that still think they're in a silo, still think they're insulated, still think that they can do it alone, are the ones that are going to be left behind. as the customer, goes the different direction.
Thanks, Jay. Maryam, any additional thoughts there?
I think that's spot on, and I think you just have to know what to expect from the partnership and where to send your resources with that. And the other part of it is integrations don't always follow the partnership in the ecosystem. So just because you have an integration with a company doesn't mean you're going deep with that partnership, but you are playing friendly with that ecosystem. So being able to leverage it on the marketing side, announcing that you're integrated, making sure the customer knows, but doesn't necessarily mean you guys are back channeling deals and referring business and like plugging into cross team with every single one of your partners. So I think it's also understanding, you have, like, I do believe firmly you have to kind of be bought into the ecosystem and the alliances. Otherwise you will get left behind. To what Jay mentioned, partnerships is a must in this ecosystem for sure. And just knowing which partners to strategically bet on and go deeper with, and making bets on that at the executive level, and which ones you're integrating with and still playing within the ecosystem. Because to Jay's point, it is a best of breed play. You are not going to win this game alone. Is important. And then obviously knowing when to not spend time and money, and a lot of times your partners and then the product team builds something that kind of overlaps. So that overlapping game also plays a factor in this space, and I've seen it. But at the end of the day, if you're focused on what you're really good at, and you kind of go into the other parts, and other partners are focused what they're good at, they'll come into yours, but you can still play that best of breed strategy as long as you're strategically aligned at the executive level.
Thanks. Max, any thoughts there?
Yeah. I think so I agree with everything that's been said. I think for me, I think that the question was, what are the pitfalls to a successful a partnership not being successful? Where are things that could go wrong? Quite often, people don't spend the time to really map out what am I trying to accomplish with the partnership? Is there shared value between myself and the partner that I'm looking to build with? We broke it down to fundamentals. It's a practice that's been around for a while, is really understanding who your ideal customer profile is. And then from that, you build your ideal partner profile. And you're very pedantic in that process, so that when you go down the process of building a partnership, there's shared commonality, there's shared value in terms of what's going to come out, how it's going to look. You get buy-off from both executive management teams. You establish that level of trust, and you have a defined outcome as mapped out. Because what happened you get down the road and the partnership's not scaling at the rate one customer or one side was doing. The expectations weren't aligned. The product or the market pivots, and so you're not able to pivot with that, to Maryam's point. So I think that's a really big thing, because you can spend a lot of time in partnerships and drive very little if they're not well defined, right? And that's where the constant question about partnerships is, I know I need to be there because I need to drive scale. I need to accelerate my distribution, my reach, everything. But I'm not sure how to do it. I'm not sure if it can drive returns. So convince me otherwise. And I think that's a big thing, right? Some partnerships are, hey, you do a deal and you get a windfall right away, and it's a 3-year deal and you don't have to worry about it. But most often, in most cases, it's a gradual growth over time, right? A perfect example, and I think Maryam mentioned it, was she's worked with AWS, GCP. I've tried to do that a number of times. Just getting on a marketplace does not generate anything. You then have to, you get on the marketplace, then the heavy lifting starts to happen. How do I co-sell? How do I develop scale? How do I build value, right? So I think there's a lot of things that it's not as easy as a direct sale motion where I hire more bodies, I put more people on phones, and I go ahead and ring it, right? Because there's different distribution channels, and also the last one I'm going to make, the sell through versus sell to adds a whole different level of complexity.
Thanks, Max. Elorie, any additional thoughts there? Pitfalls?
Absolutely. I think everybody made really valid points, and a hot take too. I think a lot of this depends on the vendor as well, because we have to remember that partners are working with sometimes 60 to 80. I'm sure Jay has a much better stat than me, but vendors, per partner. And partner enablement is key here, right? We can't just expect to go full in on a partnership and expect them to move from that transactional to transformational type of partnership that we expect without fully enabling them, as Max said, aligning on what those goals are, those shared outcomes, but then staying close to them if we can, if we have an aligned resource to them, if they are identified as a strategic partner, but also having enablement at scale and making sure that they know how to sell with us, that we are incentivizing them to continue to sell with us. And we're not just focused on the customer lifecycle, the customer journey, but the partner's experience and journey with us too, and making sure that they have all of the tools that they need to be successful with us, and that we stay top of mind. That's what Maryam and I do in a marketing perspective.
I think we all agree that sometimes I even get questioned. I'm like, who do you work for? Do you work for me or do you work for the partner? I'm like, if there's no partner, I don't have a job, so I work for the partner, right?
That means you're doing your job well,
That's
say.
right. Yeah.
I think Max brought up a really good point about marketplaces, and some of our research lately is really showing this, that in the cyber industry, you got several vendors now who have put out press releases that they're doing $1 billion on AWS, for example, but Microsoft, Google, and other marketplaces. And inside the press releases, they're talking about partnering. And so over 70% of the deals that go on a marketplace have private offers, multi-partner offers, distributor sellers of record. Mm-hmm. For example, in that CrowdStrike press release a month ago, while they grew the AWS marketplace like 93%, almost triple digits, they grew DSOR, which is kind of partnering distributor, by 3,548% at the same time. So while going to a marketplace isn't, Amazon.com and you list your product and hope it sells a lot, it's literally bringing in partnerships. And while the money changes hands slightly differently than maybe a distributor or a large reseller, the fact of the matter is there's partnering up and down throughout the deal. And we see that whatever 70% today going to 96% over the course of the next 10 years, when vendors recognize that this team sport that they're in and the economics of all of that start to be shared, not in that resale model, but now in a marketplace model as well. So it's really good indicators underneath, and other companies like Splunk and Palo Alto, Trend Micro and others have issued these billion-dollar press release talking as much about partnering as just the top end sales number.
Yeah. And when we first set up the marketplace, and we got some organic growth, but really you have to enable your sellers and some of the partners, because it is now it's definitely picked up, but 4 years ago that was not the case. So it's also an understanding of, for this in the cyber world, the buyer is the IT buyer, and they do have a committed spend that they can draw down on by leveraging the marketplaces. I've been at other companies where it's in the SaaS space, where the buyer is on the marketing side or on the product side. That doesn't always parlay as effectively into the marketplaces. So knowing that the buyer is drawing down their spends in marketplaces, and then educating your sellers of that and knowledge is important. So that's the partner. The internal enablement is key there. And also sometimes your partners don't necessarily know that they're, they do now, but some of them might not know there's a CPPO option, which is a channel partner private offer, as an example, with the AWS marketplace. So I think that's important. And then aligning internally with incentives and making sure your sellers are comped neutrally in that way too is important, so that we're not dinging them for going through the marketplaces, because that is where the customer ultimately wants to buy.
Maryam, thanks for sharing that. I'm curious, maybe this is a stupid question, but the private offers, can you explain more of that? I'd be curious to learn more about that.
Yeah, so when you do a private offer, you can't buy directly through the marketplace. We set up an offer and sell to the partner or the customer directly in the back end of AWS. So that's all, like, we do predominantly private offers, actually. We do either direct private offers to customer, or there's a channel private offer. AWS was the first to do that, and now the other marketplaces have come on board with channel offers as well. But that has really helped us scale, because we are a channel first company, partner first. So being able to do those private offers with the marketplaces has really scaled.
Yeah, and I think Jay might know better, but we are looking just Sectigo to get on the AWS marketplace, and you can leverage all types of companies that actually help you get on all three at once, like third parties. But I believe it's something like north of 80% of the AWS business goes through private offers like that, right? I don't think, or at least certainly, Jay would know the exact number, but I know it's predominantly flips in that private offers flavor.
Yeah, it's actually 50% by 2027. So it's
okay,
a little
50.
bit smaller.
Okay, 80. I'm way ahead.
but no, you're talking from a cyber lens. I mentioned north of 70% of cyber is already here because of, again, that strong overlay.
Okay.
But remember, if you're in MarTech or AdTech or HR tech or other parts of the market, there isn't that strong kind of overlay. I can explain the economics. Like if you're a vendor, in the old world, you would have sold your product to TD SYNNEX Ingram in cyber exclusive D&H, a distributor or a large reseller, and there's gross to nets, front and back end margins. And let's just, for the sake of clarity, say 20%. And that's the margin that the wholesale sell in versus sale out price. In a marketplace, the fees that the marketplaces charge, Microsoft, AWS, Google, and others, is about 3%. So you'd think as a vendor, oh my goodness, I've just gone from a 20% kind of discount to 3%. I've just become 17% more profitable. And most of the smart vendors, and pretty much everybody now, figured out that no, that 17% doesn't go to your bottom line. It gets reissued as private offers. To that great partner who did co-selling, co-marketing with you, and you won the deal, that great partner that did the consulting with the customer and recommended you, the designer architect of the deal who put you into the 3 of the 7 spots, the people that are in doing successful implementations and integrations that keep you sticky for life, the managed service provider who's there every 30 days forever, upselling, cross-selling, enriching the deal. You understand there's a home for that 17%. Private offers, multi-partner offers, distributor sellers of record are just functionality within the marketplace where I can spend what I would have done in the margin world as private offers. But understand the economics of partnering is still that 20% of the deal that a smart vendor, will want to incentivize and work closer with these partners of different types. And non-resellers, which is even better, at the key parts of the customer journey that you'll now have money to invest in to do more.
Yeah.
Super helpful. Thank you. That's interesting. Awesome. Let's change gears a little bit. First, we're definitely rolling through the agenda here, but if anybody has any questions that's listening live, feel free to put it in the chat. We'll try to cover it as we go through these different topics. We've kind of hit on trends. I know, Jay, you've obviously brought up the platformization and kind of redefining that. Is there any other trends in the cybersecurity space that's influencing how partnerships work? It could be consolidation, it could be regulation, AI. Even Maryam, you kind of mentioned even competitors, like working with competitors. And I love the term co-opetition and the idea of collaborating with your competitors. And we're seeing a lot more of that, I think, in cybersecurity, but in general, across different industries. Any trends we're seeing in cybersecurity that's kind of changing how partnerships work outside of maybe the ecosystems or the AWSs? Just any thoughts there?
Well, one thing I'd say is we've seen a massive rise of API integrations, right? If you're not API friendly and API have ways to integrate outside of the marketplace, but I'm talking direct integrations to deliver consolidated experiences for customers to consume. That's a big trend that's happened. And now you have cybersecurity that's all built around API cybersecurity. So it's a whole almost evolved to become a thing in itself because of artificial intelligence, because of everything else. Another trend, again, outside of the obvious one, which is artificial intelligence, is I think increased compliancy regulations, compliance, that sort of thing. You have a number of different standards bodies that emerge every day and constantly are updating or requiring companies to do X, Y, Z to maintain compliance. So that definitely influences the direction that people take in their purchasing decisions, but also who they end up partnering with. Because if you're not, for the obvious one, if you're not SOC 2 compliant, then you don't meet certain requirements, or you don't map to CIS controls for internet standard security, or the like. So those are just a couple that we've seen.
I mean, you said the word already, AI. That's definitely a massive trend, and that's going to continue to be. So how do how are you using AI to help your customers remediate or find their cloud security risks faster? How are you leveraging AI in the platform yourself? And so I think that's going to continue to be the trend, and add on to that, there's the agentic AI tools now that people are embedding into the tools as well. So, and then being able to also build partnerships with your hyperscalers around AI. So which AI tool are you using? And are you we are leveraging Bedrock? We started with ChatGPT as well. So it's what other tools are you using into in your instance and helping your customers with AI?
Good point.
Thanks, Maryam. Jay, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's coming from everywhere. Obviously, AI is creating the surface area exponentially larger every day. The threat vectors continue to kind of explode at that exponential rate. We need AI, on the good side to keep up with AI on the bad side. It creates a really interesting, 3, 5, 10-year view of this industry. This industry will continue to outperform the tech industry, which is growing at 8%, and the world economy, which is growing at 2%. So it's a really large, expanding opportunity for everyone on cyber, whether you're a partner, vendor, distributor, in the career path, at the end customer level. So there's that piece. The compliance is starting to catch up, which Max just mentioned. I look across 193 countries, look at a state and province level compliance, regulatory governance scheme, looking at cyber insurance. I think pretty much everyone now is at the stage of it's a question of when, not if. So, now we're in this mode. We don't have to scream from the mountaintops anymore. We don't have to use threatening marketing anymore. So we've matured, but things like, cyber insurance, watching partners, for example, take on additional risk, which, governments are putting on them, in terms of their level of responsibility, when this happens. So yes, it's a maturing of this industry, and it's obviously, it's good for the industry. But, if you happen to be Larry in the white van, with 7 employees, which the average partner size is, this could be crushing in terms of the level of, maturity you're going to have to reach to serve this market and to do it effectively and to mitigate that personal risk that you may be taking on.
Thanks, Jay. Elorie, any thoughts on trends, yeah.
So many thoughts, obviously, on consolidation, platform consolidation, AI, working at Zscaler. We do all of those, but we understand fully and wholeheartedly that it's a team sport. So consolidation is something that we talk about a lot, but we understand, I think all of us understand at this point, that one platform, one vendor cannot do everything. But when we take a look at what trends, all of this, everything that we're talking about is surfacing just an incredible amount of threats. That's why we're all here, is because the internet threats, all of the hackers, everything, that's creating a model that is just almost unstable at this time. We can't grow fast enough because they're coming from every area. And then regulations too, of course, I think that Maryam hit on as well. It's tougher to ensure that the vendor that you're working with has all of the necessary compliance, FedRAMP, et cetera. If you're selling into verticals, it's becoming incredibly hard for vendors and for, I think, just cybersecurity in general to keep up. You're seeing new vendors pop up almost every single day too, solving some challenge or some issue. And we even saw Wiz come up almost overnight and then get acquired by Google. So we're seeing a lot of these unicorns come in and solve issues because the surface attack is just so large. Jay, I'm sure you'll probably want to hit on Wiz as well and the rise of new vendors too. But overall, the trends are just massive right now.
And by the way, 70% of their sales was on marketplaces, and the majority of those marketplaces are not named Google. So we're watching that progress as well. Talk about competition. We're watching that progress, that story.
Yeah, the one thing too, constant theme that you see across everything that we've talked about too, Taylor, is AI accelerates things. So I think one word that we would all agree on is automation. Everything is automated. You want to automate as much as you possibly can to keep up with the speed of what's coming at you, right? So, and that automation is facilitated through APIs, through AI, through different types of tools that you're deploying across your organization, through compliance. So the more that you can automate your workflows, the better, because now you don't have to worry about the shortage of experience that's out there that's keeping up with all this stuff. If there's a shortage of security people, you also don't need to worry about manual processes that can disappear where, let's say Maryam's in charge of something and Maryam goes on holidays for 2 weeks. What happens? And now we have a risk factor. So that automation helps really tighten up anything in terms of leakage when you're looking at your cybersecurity footprint.
Thanks, Max. Super interesting. So I heard a lot about obviously AI and completely agree from the product side and all that fun stuff. I'm curious, this is actually at the bottom of our agenda. How do you all think of AI, and this is very futuristic, or maybe even right now, how do you see AI influencing or changing how you build strategic partnerships, whether it's with MSPs or the ecosystems, et cetera? How are you thinking about using AI, and how do you see it in the future? I'll start with you, Maryam. Any thoughts?
I mean, there's so many nuances with strategic partnerships. If we can get some kind of automation and helping us filter through the data, and Crossbeam has really helped us when it comes to partners. Like I used to sit and do VLOOKUPs in Excel to find the data that Crossbeam has uncovered for us. So there's so many other things on the marketing side too that AI can use to automate and get things flowing better so that you can work with partners better, just like collaborating on events, sharing lead lists, figuring out which regions you have that are the best go-to-market places with your partner. Maybe helping you create your verticalized or industrialized go-to-market stories. I mean, there's so many ways you can leverage AI. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. I wish I had the time to take a backseat and play with AI to make it all work. Maybe on my own I can start, but I'm excited to see how we can automate it and really get partnership leaders in the field really working with on the execution part, like having AI help us execute the plan so the partner leaders can go out and build more partnerships.
Love that. Elorie, any thoughts? Or Jay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, on top of Crossbeam, we're watching 261 entrepreneurs who have data sets that are perfect in a headless world, where, you know, as a channel marketer, you're thinking about the 28 moments before your customer makes a decision, and you're thinking about the 7 partners, and you're thinking about the 7 ISVs that they're considering, and 14 things on the top of 28 creates, you know, trillions of permutations. Wouldn't it be great if my Copilot or Agentforce or whatever talks to their Copilot and starts to present a picture to us at how the customer moves, and creating, you know, all of these different relationships that will never be human based, or there's never a spreadsheet VLOOKUP that could possibly get to this level. But the more we understand in a post-cookie world how these moments move and how we can see these moments earlier than ever and work with the customer and all the partners that surround them, hand-holding them digitally, because 75% of our new buyer doesn't want to talk to a human, digitally to that point of sale.
Fascinating. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah,
Elorie, any thoughts?
That's a great point, Jay. And yeah, absolutely. I follow your trend cycle for platforms for channel as well quite closely. So, of course, we have Crossbeam, we're using Zift, which is now Unifier, to help follow the process of how our partners are marketing through with us, with Zscaler. And it's just incredible. And these tools just unmask so much data that you don't have. But it's also a very double-edged sword, too, when you're putting sensitive company data and information into an unregulated AI. That opens up, again, the surface attack that I talked about earlier. So, of course, AI is an incredible asset in our toolbox, but it also has to be used very wisely. We need to make sure that there are procedures and policies in place. Obviously, vendor onboarding is very important here, too, to make sure that every AI tool meets our regulatory compliances, but also we've developed our own AI internally, which I'm sure many other companies have done or are doing as well, to help protect that company information, because we've seen in several instances where people have put in code or sensitive company information and somehow that gets leaked. So we have to make sure that we are also responsibly using AI. As much as it helps us get our jobs done quicker and faster, we also need to protect our IPO and our company sensitive information.
Super cool. Yeah, I love the counterbalance to AI, and there's always a pros and a cons to technology, even automation, right? Even pre AI. Well, cool. We got about another 12 minutes left. I'm gonna have a couple more questions I'll hit on. Looks like we got some questions in the chat too. I'd love to hear. I heard platforms and ecosystems being obviously a great trend. What other strategic partnerships are you most excited about? And I'll start with Jay. Any other forms of partnerships, OEM, MSP channel, etc.?
Yeah, so I mean, the next leap, you know, we talk about 6,500 cyber vendors sharing their telemetry, building out their APIs, becoming friendly with each other in the cyber stack. Understand that cyber is inside of every product going forward. You know, I think of emerging tech. When you think of, you know, beyond agentic AI, we start getting into more physical AI, which is self-driving cars and drones and humanoid robots and things. After that, we get into the 83% of the world's business data that sits on premises that hasn't been tapped yet. Every flight you've ever taken sits on a 1970s Sabre system. Every banking transaction you've ever made sits on a 1970s era IBM mainframe. Every social security request you've ever made. This is the promise of AI over the course of a 20-year era, is unlocking that business data in a safe way, back to Elorie's comments. But this is the promise. It's not agentic, it's not physical, it is truly when we have less apps on our phone, less internet sites to go to, and our co-pilots are talking to other people's co-pilots and changing the world in everything we do. So kind of, you know, thinking in that framework about how quickly things change, AI starting to integrate with everything else. Every application, there's 250,000 SaaS applications that AI should not be kind of an external bolt-on. It's got to be built from the ground up inside. And, you know, a couple of the vendors here, this is what they do for a living. Security has to be built into our cars and physical things. It has to be built into banking, insurance, pharmaceutical, and all the 27 industries. And so the integrations don't stop with, each of us integrating with each other. It's all of us integrating with everything. Now, again, you're into the billions of integrations and, everyone building their future products over the next 20 years that starts and stops with security, from the very first step. And that's, again, world changing. And it'll be harder for the bad guys to get in when the very first layer of any, facing application, has security in the first line.
Thanks, Jay. Max, any thoughts on what types of strategic partnerships are you most excited about? I think you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry, that's a good question. And I really enjoyed, I was very just sort of transfixed with Jay's take of where life is going. I'm a little bit concerned, but I'm excited too. Yeah, no, I mean, I think I look at it from the top level of a lot of cloud partnerships that where we're going, which we've talked about today, where cloud partnerships are going cloud to cloud, using AIs, different AIs, backends to talk to each other. I think those are very interesting from a personalization of content too. We've talked a lot about automation, but personalization down to what an end customer is looking for, if that's possible. And then, I'm also interested to see over the next little while where, again, some of these industries that Jay mentioned that are out there that tend to be sort of laggards are going to do. And right, I'll give you an example. We've recently made an investment here to go more proactively into the MSSP space. And you see MSPs moving from sort of traditional break and fix computers now to cloud services and managed IT and all this sort of stuff. And with that comes a ton of new opportunity, but it's still very much an education process to get them there and then for them to get their customers there. So I think there's a lot of interesting developments that are going to take place over the next 5 years there. And AI is going to obviously help accelerate that through learning models and stuff like that and automation. But I think that's a really exciting part for us is how do you get that, there's still a very niche part of the market that's using it, and now the rest is following. So once that comes to scale and 100% of the people are using it, like Jay mentioned, that'll change a lot of things.
Thanks, Max. Elorie, any thoughts on what types of strategic partnerships you're excited about?
Absolutely. I think as Jay alluded to as well, there's such an untapped opportunity in OEM on the box. Mainframes, Lenovo, UCS, they're not going away. I mean, Jay, you might know more than me in that essence, but I think there's such an opportunity to build from the ground up, as we mentioned, making sure that security is integrated before it leaves the data center or before it goes into the data center, it leaves the warehouse. We need to start thinking more strategically about OEM on the box when it comes to cloud-based vendors, especially too. So that's one, but also MSSPs, delivery services authorized partners. We're building out several different programs to make sure that our partners are able to build effective practices around security, and just how those types of grown leaps and bounds. It's very much moved from just transactional to how can I make that extra $2 with services. So watching the growth from transactional partner type to transformational, and that really can be any type of partner, GSI, VAR, DISTI, but I'm most excited, I think, about some of those alliances that we have, and then the partners who are really leaning into services. We've seen it in the past, when people don't want to go to the cloud, right? And now here we are. And we've seen some partners saying like, I don't need to sell services, but reality, you do, to continue to maximize your revenue and to keep it recurring, right? And to be sticky. So that's kind of what I'm most excited about in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, I think, Jay, that's a pretty awesome. 83% of businesses are still run on-prem, and that's definitely going to change in the next, what you said, 20 years. I mean, SAP right now, they have the huge migration effort. They're deprecating SAP ECC, so they want to get everyone into the cloud in 2 years. So that's a massive move, and I think that's going to start happening like even more. So how are you leaning in to help companies like SAP do that? Like how, or their customers do that? Like what is, I think that's what we can all do to help customers come into the cloud, and you can't do it on your own. You have to lean into your strategic partnerships and alliances and service partners to do that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maryam. Awesome. Well, I'll wrap up with this last question. Rob actually in the chat asked, which is on the MSSP side, asking, as a ISV, what title should we approach at MSSPs to explore inclusion of our products in their managed service? Or should we be selling directly to enterprises and have them push to our MSSPs?
I can probably take that one first. We just published research a couple of days ago on LinkedIn, kind of looking at the MDR, XDR, EDR space, which was kind of the first time the channel ever bought from another channel as kind of a white labeled product and then took that to their customer. And that's been somewhat taboo over the last 44 years, but in cyber, that's growing. Understanding if you've got 7 people in your company, you're probably not doing most of the 24/7 stuff you're talking about on your website. So in this model of being an ISV, we know that about half of partners buy it from a vendor, that level of support, and about half of them buy from other partners who have built more capabilities around being kind of an MSSP and standing behind an MSP that's then delivering that to market. But we're kind of out of a 2-tier system now. We might be in a 3-tier system where an ISV may sell to an end customer, they'll sell to an MSP, they'll sell to an MSSP, and then sell through a distributor and things like that. So it gets a little complex. But the answer is in a 7-layer, zero trust, SASE, NIST, kind of stack, it's where do you fit? Then how are you best of breed? How are you integrated with others? And then the cards will fall in terms of how that's actually ended up sold and billed to the customer with you doing the work. So the answer is complicated. I mean, there's not a single route to market, but in your TAM, your available market, your obtainable market, we can kind of show you to the decimal point where the opportunities lie and what the lowest hanging fruit, may be.
Thanks, Jay. Anyone else want to opine on that question?
I was just going to say, I agree with Jay. It depends on where you are in the stack. Whether you're looking for something to deliver services to your customers or you have customers below you. But certainly from a managed service provider, support for multi-tenancy and being able to distribute one-to-many is critical, right?
Love that. Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We're right up here on time. If I were to summarize the last hour, it's complicated. No, it's complicated, but there's tremendous amount of opportunity. And I think in the world of even with AI, strategic partnerships, I think are in relationships in general are our last moat, right? And also creating that 1 + 1 = 3. And thank you for all sharing about the ecosystems and everything in between. A lot of interesting ideas and that I know the audience appreciates. So thank you, Elorie, Maryam, Max, Jay. Really appreciate you all joining us today. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Hello.
Take care, Taylor.